Okay, in 2.1, we're going to be looking at atoms, ions, and molecules. All living things are based on atoms and their interactions. So living things consist of atoms of different levels. An atom is the smallest basic unit of matter. An element is made up of one type of atom. So if we're talking about hydrogen or oxygen, those are all made up of hydrogen atoms or all made up of oxygen atoms. An atom has a nucleus and it has electrons. So within that nucleus you have protons and neutrons. So like I said, the nucleus has protons and neutrons. Electrons, they're going to be outside of the nucleus in different energy levels, and they're going to be moving around the nucleus. So right here is a picture of an oxygen atom. So within the nucleus, you've got protons, which are going to be positively charged. You're going to have electrons, which are negatively charged, and the neutrons, which are right here, have no charge. So you're going to end up with usually the protons and electrons are going to be the same, and there's going to be really no charge on the atom itself. So another term that comes up is what's known as a compound. So a compound is made up of atoms of different elements that are bonded together. So water is an example of a compound. And then when we're talking about compounds, the smallest unit of a compound is called a molecule. So this right here is a water molecule. And again, the actual bonds and all of that forming between the atoms, that's known as a compound. Carbon dioxide is another example of a compound. So you've got one carbon and two oxygens out on the sides. So many other carbon-based compounds are found in living things, and we're going to talk about them later in this chapter. So one type of bond that can form is what's called an ionic bond. So an ion is an atom that has gained or lost one or more electrons. So if they lose electrons, that atom is going to be positively charged because it's going to have more neutrons than electrons. If it gains electrons, it's going to be negatively charged because it's going to have more negative electrons there. So ionic bonds form between oppositely charged ions. So you can see here down at the bottom that you've got a sodium, and it's going to lose an electron to the chlorine, and the chlorine ends up taking that electron. The chlorine's going to become negative. The sodium is going to be positive, but notice that right here, the sodium doesn't just go away and go, yeah, hey, go ahead and take that electron. It sort of hangs out and is sort of creepy like, and it's like, wow, I really like what you're doing with my electron. You're doing a good job with it. Oh yeah, that type of a thing. So it doesn't leave, it stays there with it. Now, another type of bond is what's known as a covalent bond. A covalent bond forms when atoms share a pair of electrons. So you can have multiple covalent bonds. Diatomic, when you do that, you have diatomic molecules. So right here, the carbon dioxide forms covalent bonds. So it's going to share the electrons, and these electrons out here are called valence electrons. So that's where it gets the name the covalent bond. And so it shares those electrons equally between both of those atoms. Sometimes it may spend a little bit more time around one than the other, but those are the two types of bonds, and that is the end of the notes for section 1.